The attendees are starting to log on.
Excellent.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Tom Cohn, and I am the Executive Vice President of the Property Management Association. I want to thank you for attending today's Shot of Vitamin E, E for Encouragement webinar. For those of you who don't know about PMA, we are the largest independent regional property management organization in North America. Our membership includes more than 2,000 property management professionals and nearly 350 associate members or firms that provide products and services needed to manage property. We do three things at PMA. We make property managers' lives easier, we make them more professionally rewarding, and we provide a platform to build a wide area network that you can tap to solve problems and establish, in many cases, lifelong friendships. If you like this webinar, you're going to enjoy our best practices for virtual leasing webinar Friday, May 29th at 1 o'clock. More information is available on our website, www.pma-dc.org. Today, you're in for a real treat because our webinar leader is Dr. Debbie Phillips. She is truly an exceptional educator, teacher, and all-around great person. Debbie is an internationally recognized real estate professional with more than 3 decades of experience with diverse property types. Debbie has told me she started her career when she was 9 years old. As an entrepreneur, Debbie has a multifaceted career, including developing world-class leadership development programs and talent management strategies. She is an experienced real estate and property management professional. She was recognized in 2019 as a woman of influence in real estate by Globe Street and was awarded the very first Real Estate Award of Excellence as a certified property manager, CPM, in 2015 by IRA. In addition to her private consulting, Debbie serves as president of the Real Estate Career Academy, a nonprofit that focuses on career awareness for those exploring careers in real estate. Debbie received her PhD from Georgia Tech, where she developed an employee engagement model for multifamily housing. In addition to teaching and consulting, Debbie is a renowned author and nationally acclaimed speaker. Debbie, the stage is yours.
Oh, thank you, Tom, and thank you, Sarah. And normally, if you called my voicemail, it would say, you know, today's a marvelous Monday, but I can't say that it's a marvelous Monday when we have high unemployment and such devastation due to the pandemic. But I will tell you, it's a milestone Monday, and we're probably entering, if my math is right, I think we're in week number 11, and I think all of us have had a heavy dose of COVID-19 procedures and pandemic reopening guides and all of that. So I was excited that Tom asked me to share Dr. Debbie's dose of vitamin E. And if you were on our presentation a few weeks ago, Engaging Employees in a Virtual World, we really looked at drivers of employee engagement. That's another vitamin E that I think everybody could use a dose of. But today, I wanted to focus on encouragement. And I don't know about you, but I have finished two marathons. And I can tell you that about mile 20, I needed some encouragement. And I know that your teams are feeling the stress and the aftermath of all the disruptions. So in my usual fashion, I'm a true teacher. I want to make these slides available to all of you. And just as soon as the presentation is over, I'll save this as a PDF and get this to Tom so that he can share it with all of you. Because really, when you logged on or you signed up for this particular webinar, you thought, goodness, what is Debbie going to say today? Or you said, I'm running out of emotional fuel myself and I need to replenish. So whatever your reasons were for joining us today, I'm giving you a virtual hug and telling you thank you for taking just a few moments out of your schedule today to fuel up and to get some vitamin E. When we were first sheltering in place, I read a quote by Jonathan Phillips that 87% of employees spent the vast majority of the day somewhere between sigh and cry. If you're taking notes, which I hope you are, and hopefully you're, not driving down the road, hopefully you're someplace where you can jot a few notes in your journal for what you did today. I want you to jot down something about fear. And if you look at what psychologists and neuroscientists say about fear, really what causes fear is the unknown, the uncertainty. Most of us, when we are grinding out a project or something and we're really struggling, we generally have kind of an end date. If we could just get that property closed, or we could just get it leased up to put it on permanent financing or something, we generally have an end date. And I think that is what is so unusual about this fear that we've encountered, is that we really didn't know. And to some extent, we still don't know, when are we going to be able to resume, and I love Tom's phrase, the new abnormal. So I want us to think and acknowledge when you are calling your teams and you're checking on them, before you launch into your typical, because a lot of us on the call, and I'll be the first to tell you I'm a type A personality, I forget to say good morning before asking for the report. I want you to just quiet your mind and say, before I get on the phone with this particular team member, this property manager, this service technician or service director, I'm going to check in with them emotionally. I'm going to say, you know, tell me how you're doing. Tell me, you know, what's going on that's happened that's a good headline before we start just diving in to business as usual. If you're taking notes, I want you to write this. I'm a fast driver and I have lots of evidence by getting to meet a lot of state troopers along my path. But we got to shift gears. We got to mentally shift gears, because how we talk, write this down, how we talk and how we think shifts the way we feel about things. I do a lot of presentations around Goldman's work of emotional intelligence, and we have to be more self-aware. Aware of how we show up, aware of how we drive the conversation. And this second little phrase on this slide, our reaction and response creates our reality. Every one of you on the call today, you're a leader. And we have an enormous responsibility. You know, it's very important as leaders that we are calm and we are very considerate of others. But when I say our reaction and our response creates our reality, I often caution leaders. I said, be careful when you are in a meeting that you try to speak last and not first. You know, that great book by Simon Sinek, Leaders Eat Last. I would also say that leaders talk last, because many times when we state our opinions, we stifle the opinions of others, particularly new people on our teams who might not be familiar with our personality or the way we carry ourselves and the way we do business. So I just wanted to start out this quick presentation to just be mindful of the words that we choose, the reaction, the response. I don't know about you, but there's some people that I don't like to talk to them in the morning because they're not morning people. I'd rather schedule a call with them after lunch. I'm a morning person, so you know, I like to get going early. But just think about that simple example. All of us have a prime time, and we know it's just like, I don't know if you ever, you know, knew when you could ask your mom certain things versus when you ask your dad certain things. We would always know who we could go and get a green light from. So I want us to shift gears and just be very mindful of the way we talk and especially the way we think. I put this Simon Sinek book in, Start With Why. You know, when we're at mile 20 in that marathon, I want us to think, why did we even start this? You know, we're in week number 11. And while most of us have adjusted to a new normal, as Tom was sharing before we broadcast the presentation, you know, we've had to adjust to schooling children at home, you know, having, you know, two people working in the same household from their laptops. So I think it's important that we have at the front of our mind, what is our why? When we're talking to our teams, I want us to think, why did we even set up the call to begin with? Yes, we have to reforecast our rents. And I heard that y'all had a great webinar the other day about, where you were in your rent collections and things like that. But remind your team of our why. I was sharing with Tom that I think in multifamily, we've adjusted better than other sectors of real estate because we were already accustomed to taking care of our customers at home. We just see more of them today than we might have previously. So it's important to keep our why in front of us, whether you're losing weight, saving money, trying to get the team back together to re-engage in our workspaces and in our communities. And by the way, don't call them complexes. That's a mental disorder. We build communities. So again, the way we talk, I always say, you always move in the direction of your talk. Be positive, be encouraging. Prior to the pandemic, we were in our comfort zone. I love, love, love this slide. And if you can see it, you'll see that there's what I call kind of 4 zones. And I'll talk about each one of them, but the first one is our comfort zone. Prior to this, we were raising rents, we were onboarding employees, we were doing capital expenditures, we were repositioning assets, we were looking forward to, positive growth, and we saw our NOI increasing and our values enhancing. So we were pretty comfortable. How many of you used to drive to work and you would pass something and you would think back and say, I don't even remember passing by that place? See, most of us run on autopilot. So we were in our comfort zone. And then about the first week in March, we realized that we were going to be sheltering in place. What did that mean? I think all of us had that fear of the unknown. It rocked our world. Some of us, a few started finding excuses. Well, we can't do this because of the pandemic. You know what I say about excuses? If it's important to you, you'll find a way. If it's not, you'll find an excuse. We all know those people who they blame everything under the sun instead of taking personal responsibility. We can really be affected by other people's opinions. I've had to turn off the news. We'll talk about that later. But out of that fear, and I think, I'm teaching another program on change management. And if you look at Lewin's change management model, he said that there's really 3 phases of change. You freeze, you unfreeze, and you refreeze. So I think we were frozen for a moment in time and very fearful. And then every one of us on this call went into our learning zone because we were learning how to do new webinars. We were learning how to have virtual meetings. We were learning how to use our virtual backgrounds. We were also learning that Zoom fatigue is real. Compassion fatigue is real. My heart goes out to healthcare workers. We're seeing that, those workers are most impacted by significant dreams. And there's been a lot of research that has started. But pat yourself on the back, because every one of us on this call today, we have learned something new. Now, I don't know that we could have said that. I don't think people just say, well, we're going to run out and learn new virtual platforms for the fun of it. No, we had to do it because we had these pain points. And I think sometimes that people can run around and say, yeah, I want to change, but until you have to change, you're not suiting up for it at first. And then now I want to encourage all of you. You are now in your growth zone. If you look back over the last 80 days, how is what you've learned over the last 80 days going to impact the next 80 days. Some of my clients, my owner operators, some of the smaller management companies have said, I realize that we can cut checks virtually. We can do this and that. So I want all of you to use this as a time of reflection and recalibration to set some new goals, but to also think about, and if we had time to go around the whole call, I bet every one of you could say, hey, this is an area that I've grown in. Some of you didn't know you were going to have to be homeschoolers or educators. Some of you have had to figure out, where to go in the house to get a signal on your phone and to be uninterrupted when you were talking to your team. From the smallest growth to the largest, most significant growth that you've made, I want you to think about how are you going to scale it. I love what James Clear says in that book, Atomic Habits, which is, you won't be around me or Tom. Tom is like my brother when it comes to books. But James Clear in the book Atomic Habits says you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems and processes. So when you think about your growth zone, where have you fine-tuned some of your systems, some of your processes? I know all of you have added to your protocol when it comes to emergency procedures. But some of us have been affected by other people's opinions and others' ideas. So I always say, kind of stay in your lane, stay in your zone. Somebody said, well, we have some employees that still aren't doing their compliance training. And I said, well, you have to offer it up, but you have to release yourself of that responsibility. People are responsible for their own learning. That's just, I do a lot of coaching, and there's a relationship between the coach and the coachee, the mentor and the mentee. And there's these lines of delineation. And the reason I put this particular slide in here is for us to just really, really focus on our own personal responsibility and be mindful that as leaders, we can have an emotional wake. You know what I mean is that, that large ship or boat comes down a small canal. Sometimes we can be so overly powering that the people on the sidelines say, why should I bother? So I want you to really focus on your thumbprint, your signature, your responsibility. St. Augustine says, conquer yourself and the world lies at your feet. I was spending some time the other day with a management company, and we were, doing some virtual learning, and I said, I want to stop about 30 minutes early. And people said, well, why are we stopping early? And I said, because I want you to have time for reflection. Jack Welch, many years ago at the Leadership Institute, he said, that's the problem with leadership development today, is that we don't allow enough time for things to marinate. I'm using my word, to marinate versus self-reflection. But we get in such a hurry to get it done and go on to the next that we don't really have time or take the time to adequately say, okay, what's different? How can I use this? And I wanted to offer up today just a few what I call shifts for personal success, particularly as we're establishing the new abnormal. You got to examine your environment. I don't know how many of you were like me, but when all this started, the very first thing I had to do was create a better workspace. Now, I had a nice home office, but I really had to decide how much news and other media I was going to take in. I had to decide what my environment had to look like. And if you saw it today, you would see I'm just surrounded by my books. I know Tom is too. But I also had to change my language. I had to just really live more in day-tight compartments. I want to encourage you to act as if. You know, I had some young leasing consultants the other day. We call them marketing reps at one particular company that I work with. And they were like, well, how long are we going to be doing this virtual leasing? And I said, well, till we get leased up. You know, it makes me crazy to drive by a property and see the banner now leasing. I wonder when aren't we leasing? You know, but we have to have a mindset that this is the new way and we're going to continue it. And I was excited to hear Tom talk about the virtual leasing webinar on May 29th. That's going to be an outstanding program because there's so many ways that you can excite and engage your customer. And quite frankly, they appreciate it. You know, there's these self-guided tours and the virtual leasing, but you've got to act as if we are already successful. Now, were we disrupted? Absolutely. But I'm acting as if we already have success. We certainly have to learn and apply. I know this webinar is probably a lot smoother than the first one I did because we're learning and we're applying the new knowledge. Let me say that I want you to ask your teams, let everybody on your team have the talking stick. Ask them, John, what have you learned through this? Sue, what can you add? Because all of us have been affected very differently. And I just want to encourage all of you. That's what we're talking about, vitamin E. I want you to encourage others to share what they've learned. Got a large class of college seniors, and I'm working with them. I'm helping them on their resumes. I'm, putting Humpty Dumpty back on the wall. Some of them they've been very insulated, and they just don't know how to navigate this. And I said, well, sweetheart, what you're learning, you're going to apply to life. Because in coaching, when somebody says, well, I don't know how I'm going to make it, my first response is, well, what have you done in the past? See, we all fall back on our defaults. That's why I love to just suggest books after books after books. If you go on my website, you're going to see a ton of my favorite books. Because it's like working out. If you only do it once in a while, you're not going to have anything to grab hold of. But if you're constantly a learner, then you're going to develop better defaults. Because in times of stress, we don't create new things. We generally rely on our tried and true. So I want you to learn and apply. Ooh, number 5. Surround yourself with people that match your mindset. I don't know about y'all, but I just, people say, well, Debbie, how are you always so perky and upbeat? And I said, I'm not perky. That's Katie Couric. But I am optimistic and I'm full of encouragement because I absolutely made a decision many, many years ago that I would not allow myself to hang out with ants. Ants, it's my little acronym for a lot of negative thoughts. We don't have time for that. And that's why coaching is so important. When I'm doing individual coaching and I give an assignment like go read, How to Win Friends and Influence People, or I'll give them a book and they hem haw around or they make excuses, I just coach them off the island. I don't want anybody in my circles that aren't committed to grow. And I don't mean that I'm looking for everybody to, quote, run that marathon that first day, but I'm certainly not going to tolerate in my circles somebody that's not looking to move their personal needle. So I want you to also, while we're talking about the teams, I want you to observe who on your team has really stepped up to the plate and ask, hey, how can I help? What can I do? You can always tell somebody's thermometer by them raising their hand and asking for more. Create new habits to support your change. We're talking about shifts for personal success, and I want you to write down 3 little phrases: the close, the powerful, and the many. And I'm not talking about MINI, like mini micro habits, although that's important. I'm talking about MANY. So I want you to look at the close, the personal, and the many. When you're creating habits, those closest to us can either help us, encourage us, catapult us to new heights, or they can try to pin us down or distract us. So the close, you got to have people in your circle. That's why I put that one above it. I did a presentation last week, and if you follow me on social media, I met a guy, his name is Travis, and he was raised by a single mom, and he had quite a story. And he said, my mom always taught me, because I asked him, I said, Travis, you have impeccable habits. How did you get them? He said, well, Debbie, he said, my mom always told me to hang out with people that will fan your fire, not throw water on it. But when we're talking about creating habits, the close, whoever's closest to you has a huge influence on you. The powerful, you got to have a powerful reason. I used to say, they said, you sure do work so hard. I said, well, I got a kid at SMU. It's a private school, out-of-state tuition. That's my why. You got to have a powerful reason. I'll tell you about another powerful reason. It was my first marathon in San Diego on the San Diego Highway, and it was a rock and roll marathon. And the only reason I signed up, 2 reasons. One, I was doing it for a young lady, little 6-year-old that had leukemia. That was my biggest why. But then I got excited because I love music and I like to dance. And I thought, well, I'll just kind of dance on that path. Because I really, didn't pack enough protein and all that. And I was really hurting on mile 23. But I ran into a man that had already finished at the finish line. And he was probably, at least 15 years older. And he said, young lady, hold your head up, hold your shoulders back. He said, the finish line is just right on the other side. And my takeaway from that is your mental magnet has to be bigger than your mess. So you got to have a powerful why. So we talked about the close, we talked about the powerful, and the many. If everybody's doing it, it's easier to go with them. It's hard to go against the herd, as I say. So create new habits to support your change. Many of you have gotten up earlier. Some of you have decided to go to bed earlier. Some of you have started, breaking up your day and getting outside for a midday walk. Whatever you've done, but I want you to think about what has been a plus for you. And then the last one is to celebrate small wins. I think that is something that we need to do more often. I think we get in such a rush to get on with the next that we don't take the time. I have to share with you a celebrated small win. It was a big win to me. There's a guy by the name of Bill Paul, P-A-H-L, and he's a service director at a property in North Carolina. And his manager got all the residents to write a thank you and put it in the window of Bill. And I think, so when Bill came to work the next day, he saw those signs in all the windows of the residents of that community. And while the manager thought that that was a small thing, it was a big thing to Bill, because he'd been working on that property 28 days straight in a row without any time off. So the small things are really big things. I always say, if you don't believe it's the little things in life, you sleep in the room with a mosquito. The little things can get us down. So celebrate small wins, but remember that the small things sometimes can be the biggest things. Let's think about strengthening our mental muscle. And the reason I put this slide in here today is because some of us are going to be in this for much longer than we ever thought. Some of us have just opened some communities, and maybe we were, 20%, 30% leased. Some of us had just hired a new property manager with a new team. I'm just telling you that some of us we got to strengthen our mental muscle. We're about to go through some typically very busy months on the leasing front. So we have to replace blue thoughts with true thoughts. Are we worried about when and how we're going to reopen our communities? Absolutely. Do we know that we will do it? Yes, we will. Changing the channel, we just talked about that. I want you to think about this, and what I mean by changing the channel is some of us have been having what we call morning huddles. Maybe we've called our properties in the morning. I want you to think about calling them in the afternoon as well. I want you to think about putting out many of us have weekly meetings on our properties on a Monday. Think about having them on a Wednesday. Thinking about putting out the agenda, and instead of you or the community director doing all the talking, that you let the service director or some of the leasing representatives lead the meeting. What I'm saying here is change it up. Everybody wants to have a voice, and I love that quote, people tend to support that which they help to create. Staying in the present. The reason I put that on the presentation today is that we have about 65 to 75,000 thoughts a day. And over 80% of those thoughts are about something that happened yesterday. Or we get all knotted up like Christmas lights, worrying about something that maybe isn't in our control. We're property managers. I say, focus on the things we can control, because there's a lot of things that are out of our control. Dale Carnegie always says, live in day-tight compartments. Cut yourself some slack. I think if we're, highly motivated, driven professionals, I think we're a lot harder on ourselves. And I think sometimes we can be ultra and hypercritical and say, well, I should have done this, and maybe I should have done that. What would you tell your best friend? Psychologists say that we are much more apt to do something nice for other people, and we typically put our own interest or, at the end of the line. I speak a lot about self-care, and Stephen Covey says the goose and the golden egg, and I think it's on page 39 in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He says you can't keep getting golden eggs if you don't take care of the goose. Unfortunately, I had to have a health scare to really learn that. But I think we need to really, you know, give our own selves some vitamin E, because you can't give to others what you don't have yourself. By the way, here's another great book. It's called Patience Comes Second. He says that the better you feel about yourself, the better you treat others. And I can tell you that when I've worked out and had enough sleep and, you know, had some morning meditation and focus time, yeah, you get a better Debbie Phillips. And I just want to encourage you to think and treat yourself as you would your best friend. Expressing gratitude. Ooh, that's a big one. I use that in as one of my interview questions. And it kind of sometimes takes people off guard. You know, I'll say, what are you most thankful for? And I can tell you this, I'm most thankful for my community of professionals. Every Friday, there's a guy by the name of Jamin Harkness here in Atlanta. And I've known Jamin for years. And Jamin took it upon himself to get, it started out as 20 or 30, and now it's 130 professionals on a call every Friday at 11 o'clock. And I tell you, everybody gets on that call to share all the things that they're doing. And you say, well, I don't want to share my secrets. And I want to challenge you, because you never want to get so far out on a limb by yourself. And that's probably what I'm most thankful for. Tom and I met 8-10 months ago. I was supposed to be giving a presentation to your membership in person, but we made it work. What you give thanks for in your life increases. Somebody said, well, how's your business doing? I said, is it perfect? No. Is it progressing? Is it positive? Is it growing? Yes. I want all of you, today's Monday, set yourself a goal that by Friday, you will touch base with every one of your direct reports and not mention a word about work. Just talk about something going on in their life that they are thankful for, and share your gratitude. Because I believe that at the end of the day, it's getting to the heart of the matter. I share with people all the time, especially in my circles, that while I'm thankful for their resumes, I'm more thankful for their heart. Because you don't build, or you don't come up with your leadership qualities in times of adversity. Your qualities are only revealed. And I have seen more acts of kindness during the last 11 weeks than I've seen in the last 3 or 4 years. And many of you have extraordinary people on your sites and on the front lines that are keeping our residents happy and renewing. You know, a resident really doesn't become profitable until 18 months, because you have to burn off taxes, personnel, insurance, all of those things. So a resident is not a profit center until their second year of living in our communities. So we've got teams on the front line that are directly responsible for those renewals. And I was sharing with a guy this morning at 11 o'clock, I said, I would love to do a study to see how many tenured teams did we have and what was their collections compared to new teams or new property managers that didn't have a relationship with his or her residents. So as we end, like a teacher, I love acronyms, and I'm going to give you one for HEART, and that's handle all matters with care. You know, we're leaders and we're stewards of our resources. And I think today, you know, if you went back to that slide that I had about the comfort zone, the fear zone, the learning zone, and the growth zone, I think now we will not take for granted somebody that wants to hug us or, you know, sitting down in an office with somebody closer than 6 feet away. Handle all matters with care. Can we get it all done? No. But the people in our paths, you know, Mary Kay Ash was so great about that. She always, in all of her workshops and presentations, she would say, imagine everybody with a imaginary sign around their neck that says, make me feel important. Handle all matters with care. Engage stakeholders in the process. Now, pre-pandemic, I would have said, only email those people that the email pertains to. Because I think sometimes our emails are just a way for somebody to make our to-do list. But in this case, I want to tell you that keep people in the loop. Expand your communication. Engage stakeholders. You know, even the lenders want to know how we're taking care of the residents. You know, and maybe prior to this, we didn't include them in so many things. You know, they just want to know if we met our NOI. But I think now people really want to know, they want to be in the loop. I have a little communication and I call it in the loop because people want to be in the loop. So engage stakeholders in the process. This is big. Act. Act self-employed, but be a team player. I find so many times that people don't get promoted, and one thing that holds them back is not because they don't have the skill. They lack the will, and what I mean by that is they're afraid to make a decision. Do you know people that just want to sit there and wait for you to tell them what to do? You know, if people are coming to you saying, well, what should we do about this? The best thing you can do is turn it around and say, well, what do you think? And try to draw out some solutions from that person. Because if you're constantly just giving them the answer, they're always going to be attached to you. They're always going to wait for you to tell them what to do. I love that quote by Steve Jobs. He said, you know, we don't hire smart people to tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they tell us what to do. Act self-employed, but be a team player. Respond promptly and professionally. Now, I don't know about you, but the emails they're nonstop. And it's hard to keep up. But I think, you know, just being able to respond and say, hey, I'm in the middle of something else, but I'll circle back. And being professional, you know, I always say, don't get in an argument. Even if you win, you lose. I love that Ritz-Carlton creed. We're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. I think it's important, too, that our teams understand that, you know, our residents can, and I think it's really the minority of residents that are ugly or you know, impatient. I think more residents than not appreciate what we're doing for them. But I always say, you know, you have to spray yourself with mental Pam. You have to let it roll off of you. You can't take one conversation with one irate resident to the next conversation. And especially leasing. I love to fire up our sales teams. Oh my goodness. Because I can tell you that the enthusiasm and the zest and the excitement that the sales team and the leasing team builds, that carries over. And you can be enthusiastic virtually. Responding promptly and professionally. And then again, that T, I'm just going to always say, thank people often. You know, if you remember from our last presentation, one of the drivers of employee engagement was that somebody recognized me in the last 7 days for doing good work. And, you know, it's so important. And I think a lot of times if you read the book Radical Candor by Kim Scott, she says there's superstars and there's rock stars, and you need both. A superstar is kind of like that leasing machine that wants to lease it up and get on to another lease up and move on. And the rock star is the person that's been on that property day after day and knows everything about those residents. I think a lot of times we overlook our rock stars. So just be mindful of that. And, the other thing is when you know things about your employees and your residents on a personal level, and I don't mean, getting up in their business in a negative way. I mean it in a positive way. But see, the more you know about somebody, you can care for them at a much deeper level. And I think that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about vitamin E, is encouraging them every single time. Tom Peters in the book Moments of Truth, he said every time somebody comes in contact with a product or service, they'll either decide that, yes, I want to continue to buy it, or no, that's not for me. What about you? When people come in contact with you, are they feeling like, oh, porcupine? Are they feeling like, hey, when I come in contact with that person, I'm going to leave encouraged, leave people better than you find them? I wanted to take the last 8 or 10 minutes to really answer your questions, to just spark some reflection and just hear what you have to say. So Sarah and Tom, if you're looking in the chat, what are on the hearts and minds of our attendees today?
We'll reach out to all the attendees if they do have a question. We don't have any in the queue right now for you, but we'll encourage those on the call to pass on their questions, and then we will let you have the opportunity to answer them. I do have a question, though, to start. You seem to be always up because you don't let the negatives get in your way, and you won't surround yourself with the people who will bring you down. But at those times when you are questioning, or that you are fearful, or you have some doubt, what do you do?
Well, I think I make a conscious choice that I bunker in. I find a way to sit still, because I think in the moments when I'm upset, or, I'm human. I mean, I have bad days too, and I have moments that I feel like, Chicken Little, the sky is falling. But I typically peel the onion back, and I use an acronym, Tom, called hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And I have to halt. I have to stop in my tracks. I have to, 9 times out of 10, when I'm spiraling out of control emotionally, or, something's got me addled, or what I call on 2 wheels on my school bus, so as to speak, I find that it's generally because I haven't taken care of myself, or I've kind of gotten ahead of myself, or, but I typically try really hard to leave early, or, go be by myself or something, because the last thing I want to do is infect somebody. And attitudes are more contagious than this virus. So I take it upon myself to shake my Etch-a-Sketch, and I get straight with myself.
You have 2 questions.
Okay.
I'll take the second one first. Thank you, Kara. Do you have any advice for how to tackle Zoom fatigue?
I do. pay attention to your prime time, and limit the schedules. And if you say, oh God, Debbie, I've got 4 different owners and they all want to meet on one day, put 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. Read the book Deep Work by Cal Newport. You're experiencing Zoom fatigue and your screen time, and you might be dehydrated. So only you know what works best. And I have found that, and I asked my scheduler to do this. I put 30 minutes in front of it and 30 minutes after it, because I wanted to give you my best today, and you have to take control of it. And I know, Kara, how you feel, because the other day I had 8 of them and I couldn't even say my name by the end of it. So pay attention to what you're doing.
There are 3 book questions, which we all like. This one is from Kimberly, can we get a list of the books that you referenced during this talk? Of all the books you cited, this is from Deborah. Of all the books you cited, what are your top 3 choices? And the last one was, how can I continue to remain positive during the times when I'm feeling sad, depressed, and want to cry? Can you recommend a good book for positive outlooks on life?
Okay, well, to Kimberly's point about the books, yes, and you can go on my website and I've got those books, but right now.
What is your website?
And I've got it on the next slide.
Okay,
right
great.
Here. But let me speak to these books, because, oh, I love it, love it, love it, love it. I believe right now, in times of like this, there's a great quick read by Bobby Herrera, Herrera, called The Gift of Struggle. And I recommend that book right now, because I have been guilty of thinking that I had to have all the answers. And my friends, we don't have to have all the answers. The good news is we have people and organizations, and I'm not just saying this because Tom's my buddy, but we got to lean on each other. And that book, The Gift of Struggle, is such a quick read. But in that book, he really talks about transparency. Brene Brown has that great book, Dare to Lead, and she talks about vulnerability and all of that. But if I had to share, really 3, right now would definitely be The Gift of Struggle. And number 2 would be The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And again, I love Leadership on the Line by Linsky. And the reason, Leadership on the Line, you may say, God, Debbie, that's so academic. But the reason I love Leadership on the Line is because right now leaders are facing it from every direction. The owners want to know, the lenders want to know, the teams want to know. And the guy from Cigna, the leader of Cigna, he said, the reason this is so stressful, it's like you're trying to build a plane with passengers on it. I love that analogy. And that book, Leadership on the Line, Linsky and Heifetz, Heifetz, 2 authors. They talk about, as leaders, you have to get up on the balcony and look down on the dance floor. And I think it's really important, because the teams that we're leading, they're really, they're dancing in different ways now. If you're on the dance floor and it's a fast song, everybody's out there moving and you don't really pay attention. And then a slow song comes, and then you can really tell how close people really are. So those are the three books, really: Slight Edge, The Gift of Struggle, and Leadership on the Line.
Debbie, I'd like to make a plug for a new PMA program. We're starting a book club. And we've selected Martin Hell's Essentialism as our first book. And we will be getting together at the end of June to discuss it. So look on our website if you're interested in joining with us, or there's an article in the May issue of our news magazine bulletin. We've had
Tom, I love that book. How did you select that one as your first one?
Well, you inspired us. That's
okay. Well, that one right there. I'm just telling you. I can tell you. I read a lot, and I want everybody on the call to do this. When you are reading a book, or you're listening on an Audible, or it's on your Kindle, always invest in the hard copy. And you say, "Oh, I can't, Debbie. I'm not that kind of reader," whatever. I let my books become almost a self-coaching tool. And I wish y'all could see, oh my goodness, I love my books. And I write in the margins about what these books are saying to me during whatever crisis I'm in the moment. Another great book, I have to tell you this, and then we'll get to some more questions. But oh my gosh, I want y'all to read The 4 Disciplines of Execution. Holy mackerel. Woo, that is so good. Oh my goodness. It reminds me of my old boss, Bill Hamilton, who worked for Johnstown American, and he ran National Property Investors and Summit Properties. But anyway, Bill, he would always give us, every new employee had to read The Game of Work. And at the time, I thought he was absolutely crazy, because he believed in Deming's, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And he would put everybody on a scorecard. And talking about hurt feelings, oh my goodness. Those regionals that were on the bottom of the scorecard, woo, he'd have, what my mama used to call a come to Jesus meeting with them. But anyway, the 4 disciplines of execution really brought back to light the importance of a compelling scorecard. Because if you're going to coach somebody, people don't want to be coached on your feelings or my feelings or Tom's feelings. They want to be coached based on evidence. And that's why it's so important as leaders that we establish a standard, because people either meet the standard or they don't meet the standard. So I could go on and on. Tom, I just love this.
We have a couple others.
Okay.
This is from Kima. She would like to know, or he would like to know, how can I continue to remain positive during the times when I already read that one. I'm sorry.
Well, let me answer that, because I never got around to that. And I will tell you this, when I am most sad, and and all of us, somebody asked me the other day, "Debbie, are you as happy as you look on your social media?" And I said, "Well, yeah, but I do have my own meltdowns." And when I'm having a meltdown or I'm freaking out, the very first thing I do, Kima, is I go out and do something for somebody else. Because, your worst day is somebody else's fairy tale. So I just try to pull myself out of that mental funk by doing anything I can for myself, but more importantly, just anything. And it might be, just tipping somebody at the grocery store. I always have Starbucks cards, Chick-fil-A cards, things like that in my wallet. And just giving them a, $5 Chick-fil-A card to buy a sandwich or something. I just have to radically love on other people. And I tell you, Tom, if it's okay with you and talking about radical love, the first 5 people that email me after this webinar, I'll send out 5 books. I did that on a webinar yesterday. That's how I love people. I don't want to babysit for you. I don't want to walk your dogs, but I'll send you a book.
We have another one. This is from Krishana. She would like to know, how do you put yourself back on your priority list after a long time of shortchanging oneself?
Woo! We could talk to the cows come home about that. You gotta start with something small, and that is, I can speak directly from this. I neglected me a lot of times because I was yes, 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 yes. And that's why you got to get in that book club with Tom on essentialism. You got to figure out what you can say no to. You got to give some of your projects away. And I'm a control freak, and I like to be, I ran around a long time with a savior mentality, like, oh, let me save you. Let me do this. Let me, yes, yes, yes. And I experienced significant health problems. I don't want anybody to have that kind of drastic wake up call, but you got to learn to treat yourself nice and start a gratitude journal and a self-care journal. And just, it's not about lighting candles and standing upside down on your head every day. It's just about being more in the present and saying, you know what, I'm going to end 10 minutes early so I can go do something. So Krishana, you know how to be nicer to yourself. Just do it. You're the CEO of YOU.
I'd just like to add that our first group meeting, thank you, Sarah, is on June 18th at noon. So if you want to go out and buy Greg McKeown's book, Essentialism, please do so and join us. And we have from Amy, she wants to thank you personally for sharing your heart, capital H-E-A-R-T, with everyone and encouraging us to use our own. So if there are no more questions, I want to thank everyone, first of all, for taking time out of your busy day to join us. PMA will continue to offer content that makes your lives easier and your jobs more professionally rewarding, and help build your own personal network so you can enjoy life a lot more and do more things for yourself and your team. Look us up at www.pma-dc.org if you're not familiar with who we are and what we do. We want to see you on our next webinars, and when we can all get together and give each other a safe, real hug, that will be a special day. Special thanks to Dr. Debbie Phillips for just another engaging, connecting program.
Thank you, Tom.
Could have been more apropos for this time. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Tom, when you get ready to do another one, I want to do one on net weaving, not networking.
Okay, will do. Thank you again, everyone. We will call this meeting adjourned. So
Okay.
Thank you, Debbie. Thanks, everyone else.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Bye.
Bye.